what's up? It's Frank here from Data Driven, the podcast where we explore the emerging fields of artificial intelligence, data, and all that good stuff. You can tell that I definitely need a reload on my cup of coffee with a little bit of a quick stream here today. So I had quite an interesting day. I actually was playing around with just a little bit ago um, Visual Studio 2022. And for the most part, I like it. It has a lot of things going for it. But I wanted to take this application I wrote some time ago called Dingo and port it to Python because it's a good academic exercise. Plus, I also think that it can be more portable um, when going to, let me see if I can load up Visual Studio. Um, it can also be more portable when I move, from platform to platform, whether it's Linux, whether it's Mac, whether it's Windows. Um, so to that end, I kicked up. Let me start sharing my screen, and I can't tell if this is a Frank problem, a change to the UI, or whatever. So I'll put that out there. Let's see, screen two. Hopefully, you can see my screen now. Um, so what I'm trying to figure out here is for the life of me, I can't get this instance of Visual Studio to check in code or work with GitHub remotely. And the user interface seems to have changed. And so I'm in the middle of this, and my wife, I'm ultimately just going to delete this and probably just uninstall Visual Studio from this machine. But while this is happening, which usually Visual Studio is very well put together. My experience with Visual Studio, and keep in mind, I've been using it since Visual Studio 2003 at least. And arguably, I guess you want to count InterDev, kind of the predecessor to it. Right? Visual Studio is pretty well put together. The source controlled story of GitHub, yeah, it was a little bit rough, but I mean, this was largely fixed in Visual Studio 2017, right? This is a solved problem. However, I noticed what I was doing was that it was actually posting my changes to a local repo. Now, I'm not quite sure what happened here, but it won't for the life of me. I can't get it to do what I want and post to the actual cloud repo. So I ended up saying, the heck with this. I went on another computer, which fortunately I have more than one to choose from, where I don't think I have Visual Studio installed. I just ran VS Code. VS Code, boom, 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 got it working. So that really cheesed me off, right? And I'm using kinder language because, professional platform and all that. Then I get an instant message from my wife saying, hey, what's wrong with the network? Now, my wife, in case you didn't know, is in technology. She's a fellow technologist in network cybersecurity, actually, of all things. And she was like, yeah, I don't know what it is on my laptop. The internet is extremely slow today. So I'm like, okay, I'll only take a look at it, right? Because I wasn't experiencing any problems. I go to her machine. I'm like, did you upgrade to Windows 11? She's like, no. I was like, well, that's Windows 11 there. And I don't know what the deal is, but my wife is a rather smart individual, despite having married me. And let me show the screen here. Apparently, this is a thing. There are folks that are, even a year ago, this was a thing. It's almost like they are installing it on the down low. In fact, actually, I turned the TPM machine chip off that device, so they can't do it unless something else happens. But I am extremely disappointed with it. So she was trying to use it. She didn't like it. She didn't like the fact that the start menu moved to the center. What bothered me was there's something weird with the network stack, and she was having severe network troubles, and things were glitching on her. And I'm mad on a couple of counts. One, she made it clear after buying a laptop back in the fall that she used Windows 11. She didn't like it, and she intentionally returned that machine and bought a Windows 10 laptop, right? Or really the same kind of hardware specs. It's just one had Windows 10 installed, and the other one, sorry, the dogs are here and they're demanding attention. It had Windows 10 installed already, and I told her to watch out for kind of stealth updates or these little dialog boxes that say, "Hey, you want to update?" But apparently, she says that she didn't. She must have, if anything, asked her. She must have just ignored it and just kind of did the auto click. And sorry, I'm trying to prevent a dog fight from happening here. What's wrong? Thank you. All right, so sorry, it's that type of day. Um, um, yeah. So while I'm struggling with Visual Studio, she tells me she's having these crazy problems. I go and I see that she was stealth upgraded to Windows 11. Now, I don't think that's cool, right? And I titled this the airing of grievances, right? Um, what is going on, right? I mean, there's a known pattern of kind of every other Windows version having, let's just say, not being as commercially successful as hoped. I was there during the Windows 8 launch. I was there for the Windows 10 launch, and I'm just surprised that having seen this firsthand, the lessons of changing too much too fast have been so quickly forgotten. And apparently, looking back, it goes back a ways. Although this is the first time I have kind of firsthand knowledge of some of the, what was done, what should have been done better, that sort of thing. Um, and again, I like to keep the stream positive, but I did call it the airing of grievances. There are a number of issues. I haven't installed it. Of all the computers I have in my house, only one of them can actually run Windows 11, which is extremely disappointing. So I actually switched to my daily laptop driver, not my work computer, my personal, to a MacBook Pro M2. The battery life on that is ridiculously good. And after that experience, and we fortunately they did have the good sense to make it easy to roll back to Windows 10. But I just feel kind of betrayed in the sense of the trust that I had. Windows has always been, for the better part of 20 years. I think the last time I had a not Windows computer, a Macintosh, this would be the OS 8, OS 9 era, was 1999. So for the better part of 22, 23 years, I've relied on Windows. Now I'm seeing it kind of not be reliable, right? And that kind of annoys me. And the fact that my wife was kind of hoodwinked into upgrading, or they did it on the stealth, is not cool. And there's a lot of other issues with Windows 11, which I'm probably going to write a longer winded blog post about it. But ultimately, I had to get this off my chest. Between my difficulties um, with my difficulties with um, with Visual Studio today, and just talking to GitHub, which is another Microsoft owned property, right? GitHub, I know it's one of those things where once you get into the flow of using it, it's easy. But like, I use GitHub, I use it quite a bit, and in fact, this is the first time, it's again totally bizarre, that I was like, you know what, let me use the command line because I know that. And I don't know, that's just kind of a weird day, a weird vibe, a weird kickoff to 2023. Um, but I will show you this, is that this is something that I did. So one of the things that made this interesting was I actually, um, so Dingo is the code base I have that basically lets me write blog posts pretty quickly, right? I can source content from multiple places, but primarily it's YouTube. Um, just for fun, literally the other day, where is it? Right here. I asked it, hey, how do I get information about a YouTube video using the Python API? Now, for some reason, this was flagged as content violation, which I filed a ticket like, no, it's not. And it basically walked through kind of how to do it. And that got me thinking, well, what if, where is it? I did this, asked it, and it basically walked through the steps, including sample code, that while not perfect and while I did have to do some modifications to it, it basically gave me all the stuff that I remember was difficult when I wrote Dingo. So the upside of this, the upshot, the practical upshot of this is that it took me, I took a month off the summer of 2021. And that's when I really kind of realized I wrote Dingo in about a week, maybe 2 weeks. Took about, all told, I probably put in about over the course of a year with updates and things like that. Although I haven't touched it in like 6 months until recently. Probably 3 to 4 weeks. Let's just say 4 weeks. I was able to, and this doesn't give me the timestamp of when I asked, but I was able to in days, right? I mean, seriously, like I really didn't start this until I didn't do it on the first of the. I didn't start this until the third. Yeah, it would have been third because I was, helping a kid do homework, and once he was done, I started banging away at ChatGPT, and here we are, a day or two later. And again, this I had other things. I was doing other things, right? So this was just kind of like back burner type thoughts, on a whiteboard, like what would I want? And now I have feature parity with a code base that originally wrote in .NET, um, in a weeks, right? So let's say weeks, right? Because that's the firm thing. And so it took me weeks to do it in a language and back when the Visual Studio actually worked as it expected it to do. Um, it worked. And you go and I wrote it in Python. Now, most of my experience with Python is in data science, right? So the original iteration of getting this working was actually just one big Jupyter notebook, right? But I was like, no, I want to be able to run this on the command line from the Mac, from the Linux, from a server, from anywhere, right? I want to be able to kind of do that. I even want to push it up as some kind of serverless Lambda function or Azure function. Um, but I mean, this basically laid out the majority of the code, like how to connect to WordPress, um, how to connect with the YouTube API, all in Python, right? And you know, having it kind of assist me definitely meant that I use Google a bit less, right? Less Stack Overflow. I was able to kind of just like see, and you can regenerate responses. So if you didn't like the way that approach was or what that wording was, you could just hit regenerate and it would come up with a new answer and slightly different phrasing and slightly different structure. Long story short, I was able to do in days what had taken me weeks before, which again, as kind of a back end system for my blog and all that. And again, that's not my day job, right? As I just see this as an enormous productivity boost. I mean, ridiculous productivity boost in terms of what's possible here. So, with that being said, that's all I got. I just really need to dig in and kind of use Visual Studio 2022 um, and figure out like what's going on with this GitHub thing because that's just ridiculous. Is it a me problem or is it a they changed the UI and it's not very clear? The directions and all the stuff I found online were very geared towards what I'm familiar with, but this interface did something completely different. Maybe it's because I have the enterprise version. I don't know, but that doesn't make any sense either. So again, before I have an airing of grievances against Visual Studio, I want to at least investigate it and kind of see what it is. But in terms of Windows 11, there's no excuse. And I am actually now very concerned that any one of these machines will randomly boot up in Windows 11. So be careful out there. That's all I got to say. So with that, I'm going to end the stream and thanks for watching. Oh yeah, one more thing. Let me know if you like this time. Put hashtag live if you're watching this live and hashtag replay if you're watching on the replay. I'll talk to you soon.